So you've just received a brief from your client. How do you go about turning this into a fully functional and published website? Today, I'm going to show you in Wix Studio my entire workflow and process in taking a client brief and turning it into a landing page that's ready to publish. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a special thank you to Wix Studio for sponsoring this video and making this possible. Let's get straight to it. So let's start with the brief. We are a company specializing in the sale and installation of residential solar panels and need a very simple landing page to capture new leads. The first thing you want to do here is break this down into conversion actions and the main goal of the website. In this case, nice and clear, is to capture new leads. So we're definitely going to want a place where new clients or prospective customers of the solar panel company can sign up, leave their details and inquire. Beyond that, as with any website, we want to make it super clear what we are and what we do. So there's your phase one, working with the brief. And in a real practical scenario, you would spend a lot more time on the brief. The client and yourself would probably have a little bit more of a back and forth interaction to make sure you're completely concrete in your understanding of what they're looking for. There will also be normally much more detail and much more needed in terms of content and pages. So this is very much simplified for the sake of this video. But if the brief is phase one, what about phase two? For me, I like to sketch my ideas together. Now, a lot of people would use a tool like Figma or any prototyping tool they like to put together a very simple wireframe or like an early draft concept of the design that they intend to build. But for me, it still is pen and paper, so I will draw out the roughest sketches possible just so that I can get my head around the sort of content and layout that I'm going to plan to put together for a particular website. As long as you can understand your own kind of references here, that's all that matters. This is just a really great way for me to sort of see, okay, we're going to have a section that's going to help with this, we're going to have a section that's going to help with this, and just sort of see the flow of the page and just sort of throw some of my ideas together in a way that's not necessarily concrete and just fun to play around with. You might hate the thought of picking up a pen and, working with pen and paper, so by all means use something like Figma. A lot of people do. For a formal job, I would then potentially head into Figma or any prototyping tool beyond that sketch and turn it into something more concrete that I can share with the client. Once there is a design or sketch or something in place that's approved and your client is accepting, the next step is to hop into the studio. So as I said, we're going to be in Wix Studio today. Let's jump straight in. So we're going to keep things light and simple today. So I'm not going to go and build out a logo for the client, but I'm going to show you how easy it is to customize the starting point. So I've gone ahead and opened up a blank project inside of Wix Studio. And you can see that it comes with a blank section or a starting point that we can then build from, and a navigation or header and a footer. So while for this tutorial I haven't got a brand logo and this is just an example, I will go ahead and change the name of the business in the navigation bar and the footer. But for a real client project, you're obviously going to want to bring in their brand assets and logos. So to make those edits, we can double click and quite simply just type in our new name. So I'm going to call this SolarCo. And it's as simple as that. We can, with that selected on the right hand side, make any changes to the font or the sizing, spacing, anything you could need to make changes to. The color and alignment is all there. Same goes for the logo. We can select that layer, we can change the vector, or we can replace that with an image. Quite simply, we can select change vector art, and we can already utilize some pre-made graphics and assets that are from Wix themselves, or you can upload your own media and replace it with something of your own. And why not? Let's use this tool to replace our logo with something more relevant. So I'm going to type in sun and see what it comes up with. This first one will work perfectly for the purpose of this tutorial. Let's click add to page. And there we go. We can resize as we need to, but for the purposes of this tutorial, that's absolutely fine. So on the left-hand side, we have our logo and business name, and on the right-hand side, we have our menu. Now, the way this works is we click on Manage Menu, or from the dashboard, we can manage our menu any way we want to. We can click Add Item, and we can add custom links, drop-downs, and site pages from there. Again, custom navigation bars is something that I'll cover in a future tutorial, but that's how you'd go about customizing your navigation bar. While we're at this starting point, I'll also go ahead and customize the text in the footer by double-clicking. I'm going to select the business name, and I'm going to match that SolarCo from the navigation bar. Okay, so our bare bones are now in place. We've got our navigation bar and our footer all ready to go. The next step is to add in our hero section. Now, this is a great opportunity to talk to you about the various different ways that you can add custom content into your website within Wix Studio. So the first way to do this, if we hover over the first section or your starting point, you can see that we can either add an element, add a layout, or add a design section. And for this first section, I'm going to show you how we can really quickly get started with a pre-designed section. So we're going to select this, and then on the left-hand side, you can see we've got so many options for our hero section. So scroll through, see what fits with you and your brand, and remember you can customize anything after. So if anything's not quite right, let's say there's some style changes that you wish to make, they are so easy to do. This feels somewhat relevant to the sort of brand I'm going to try to be working with here. So I'm going to select this. And now, as you can see, we've got the starting point of a website forming. So just to take a quick look at what exactly I've dropped into place here, let's have a look on the left-hand side at the layers panel. So you can see we've got an outside layer, which is a collage-based grid. Within that, we have 3 cells. So we've got this repeater down here in the bottom right that allows us to display a very brief gallery. We have the cell at the top, which contains all of our main copy and our call to action. And then we have this cell here on the left-hand side, which allows us to feature an image. And all of the content that we are seeing here is contained further within stacks or within those cells. Each individual one will act differently on different devices. And this is kind of one of the dynamic ways that Wix Studio allows you to lay out content. So let's start making some changes. Let's select that image on the left-hand side, and we're going to click Change Image. And again, I'm going to want to go for something related to solar power. So let's search for solar power and see what comes up. This is a really great feature of Wix Studio. You have some incredible libraries of stock images built straight in. And on the left-hand side, you can also use libraries like Shutterstock and Unsplash. Or if you need something custom, you can actually use an AI image creator. I'm going to go with something like this. It's a nice, attractive picture for the top of our website. And it clearly showcases a residential solar panel. So we're going to click update, and it was as simple as that. We now have a brand new picture on our hero section. Next, I'm going to really quickly go through these 3 images here and replace them with something more relevant. So now all of the images are in place and feel relevant to our brand. The next step is to go in and change that copy and our call to action button. And it really is as simple as double clicking to edit the text as you would with any other software or application. And that's exactly the same here. And again, with the button, if you want to make some changes, you can either click settings or just double click and it will automatically pop those up. We can then choose what we're displaying, where it's going to link to, and what we're saying. So there we have our hero section. And again, just to make it super clear, with any piece of text, or to be honest with you, anything that's customizable selected, on the right-hand side within the design panel, you can make whatever changes you wish to. So for example, with our text, we can change sizing, we can change colors, anything you would expect to be able to edit within any web design tool. And again, to be honest with you, any text-based editing tool, you can make all of these very, very familiar changes right here on the right-hand side. So it's nice and easy, everything's at your fingertips, and it's exactly the same with all of these other elements. So you can see here with our button, we get exactly the same kind of controls. We also get button state controls. So for example, our regular and hover states can both be edited from the right-hand side. We can change the background fills, the borders, the corners, anything you'll need to change. So really intuitive and really straightforward. There's our hero section ready to go. Again, with a formal project, with something you'd be working on where you're going to be following an actual brand guidelines, or perhaps one you put together yourself for a customer or brand, you're going to spend a lot more time on getting fonts right and alignment and things like that. But for now, this is absolutely fine as a starting point. So that's how you add a pre-built section. What about adding another section that we built from scratch? Let's do that right now. So if we hover right at the bottom, so just below the section we've added, you'll see a button here saying add section. If we select that, we're going to get the same options we got before. We can have a design section, we can start by adding elements, or we can choose a layout. Now, choosing a layout is going to be really, really helpful. A blank canvas is a great place to start, but the layout just gives you that little bit more flexibility with your design and a slightly better starting point. Even though it's completely blank and it won't put anything visual on your canvas, it will give you a layout that's easy to work with and actually already somewhat set up for responsive behaviors that we'll look at further down the line. So let's select layout. And you can see we have a lot of options. Now this section that I'm going to be working on is going to be a how it works section. So we're going to have a 1, 2, and 3 phase how it works. So for me, it makes sense to have a grid of 3 columns. So we're going to select that. And you can see that's now being reflected on the canvas. We have our 3 cells. And again, if you want to have a little look on the layers panel just to see what you're working with, you can see that we have 3 cells here. So to make this section work, we're going to need to use something called a stack. This is going to allow us to align the items that we wish to put in each column nice and tidily. So if we go back to the navigation bar, I'll show you that we've already handled stacks in this project so far. So this container here that I mentioned earlier is actually a stack. You can see here we've got the option to unstack. And what this means is this kind of smart way of grouping items together, which spaces them out evenly. So you can see here we have the logo on the left-hand side, and then we have the text on the right with this spacing that we can now adjust in the middle. This is called a stack, and you can see here we have a horizontal stack. If we come now to our hero section and select the layer that contains all of our text and our call to action, you'll see this is a vertical stack with our items stacked one on top of the other. And again, we have spacing between each items. Now, what's really cool with a stack is we can actually specify different spacings between each individual item, which is actually very unique. Quite often you're limited with stacks in other tools to exactly the same bit of distance between each item. But with Wix Studio, we can actually specify that we want smaller distances between two pieces of text, and then a little bit more distance between that last bit of text and our button. So they're really quite flexible. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down to our new section and add a stack. Now, because of the way things work in Wix, you might find that the most obvious way to do this is to click add elements and then look for stacks within layout tools. Now, these are great to start with because they are pre-built stacks that you can start working with right away. However, the best way to start using stacks is to actually add in all of the elements that you wish to have contained, select them all, and then add them to a stack. So we're actually going to start with an icon, a small heading, and some text. So within add elements, if you come to decorative elements and icons, we have a range of icons to choose from. And for this one, I'm literally going to choose the 3 at the top here. So we're going to go for 3 phases. We're going to go for inquire. We'll then have installation, and we'll have aftercare or support. So let's start by dragging in this paper plane icon. And then we're also going to want to bring in the heading and a small block of text that we can customize later. So let's drag that in too. So let's bring everything into view, and you can see this is far from done, right? We need to select all 3 items. And the way we do this is we hold down Shift while selecting, and what we're going to do is click this button here that says stack. We're going to make sure this is a vertical stack, and the next thing we want to do is make sure that our alignment is correct. Now, the easiest way to do this is select any of the individual elements and drag them all the way across to where you want them. And I'm just going to drag this into the middle and show you the last thing that I want to make sure that we do, and that is set the width of each item to fill the available space in the container. Now, we need to fix the spacing. You can see that we have a gap of 30 between the top 2 items, but we've actually got a -6 spacing between the bottom 2. So let's bring this down to somewhere around 8 pixels, 10's fine, and we'll do the same with the gap here. So now we have this nice little layout. We can then use Control or Command C to copy and then paste with Control, Command or V into the 2 remaining cells. And you can see here how we now have a simple icon, heading and block of text repeated 3 times. So we have a nice layout here that's followed that grid that we have built ourselves from scratch. So let's go ahead now and replace the text with more relevant content. Okay, so now the text is right. All we need to do is replace those icons. So you can either select one at a time and then come through the media search tool, or we can just actually go back to that insert column, head back to our decorative icons and select the ones we want. So I'm actually going to drag them in and I'll bring them into the stack that way instead. So we're going to select the second button and we can drag that into our stack. And you can see that actually intelligently goes into the right position. We're going to dock that to the left-hand side. And now we can remove the first icon. Something really important that I missed there, and I've just quickly fixed it, is the icon on the left-hand side had changed its size. That's partially because of what we did to get the layout right. If you need to make sure they're the same size, then there's a really easy way to fix this. So I like the size of the second icon I put in, the one I've just added. And you can see here in size, that's 45 pixels by 45 pixels. Now, if we go back to Inquire and select this icon, we can see that the size has now been set manually to exactly the same. So we could do this to the icon on the right-hand side, even though we're going to replace this. Just make sure that the aspect ratio is not locked. This allows us to edit them both individually, and then we can make sure the size is what we want. But I'm still going to go ahead and bring in that third icon, which is going to be the phone icon. Drag that into place, make sure it's docked to the left-hand side, and then we're going to remove the old icon. So there we have it. We've got a second section here that's custom built. We've actually used the layout grid to do this, and we've now built our first stacks. And just as with any of the elements in the hero section, we can fully customize any elements we want in this second section. So I'm going to go through now, select our icons and give them a color related to our theme. Nice. So there's our second section. And again, if this was a real client website, I'd ensure this entire section has a nice big heading at the top just to help people understand that this is the how it works section. But we're going to move on so I can show you more of the tools. So with a formal client brief and for an actual publishable website that's high quality, you're going to definitely want to make sure that you're getting all the sections in that you need. Now, my personal approach when it comes to designing or laying out sections like these on websites is to follow the AIDA principle. So effectively what we want to do is the first A relates to attention. We want to grab someone's attention and just make sure that we've got them hooked on the site in the first place. So this is realistically where the hero section and the first part of your website comes into play. You want to make this really gripping, and you want to make sure that it's got some nice visuals because you want to grab attention. Another really easy way to do this is with big headings. The next section, you want to build interest. So we're going from A to I. The I meaning interest is where you're going to want to add something that just gives your user or gives that end user some form of information or something that makes them a little bit more interested. Now, the reason that we follow the AIDA or AIDA approach is because we want to follow something formulaic that's going to help someone take a particular action. Now, this won't always work, but it's just a good approach to have in mind. Now, the final A is action, which is why the next letter D is so important. So we've got attention, we've got interest, then the next section is desire. What we need to do in this section is, however we want to do it, we need to make people desire the product. Now, an obvious way to do this is to obviously showcase its features or show why that user couldn't live without this particular offering. But another really easy way to do this is with something called social proof. And the most common way to do this is testimonials. So if this was a website that I was building out for this company, I would absolutely make sure that if not the next section, one of the following sections is testimonials or some form of proof that other people have used this service and they're happy with it. So we'll capture attention, we'll get them interested, we'll make sure they desire the product. And then the final step is to get them to take an action. And that's what I'm going to show you now. So we're going to go ahead and add in that final section, which is going to be our inquiry form. So as we did before, we're going to click on the add section button. And while we could go ahead and choose a predefined section, I think it's probably best that we stick to custom builds just to help you understand how to use the tools. So we're going to click on grid layout, and this is going to be a very simple layout. What I want to do is have some copy on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, an inquiry form. So we're going to select this 2-column section. Now that's in place, I'm going to come back to add elements. I'm going to scroll down to contact and forms. I'm going to say create a new form, and I'm going to quite simply use this contact form. You can choose whichever you would like. There's order forms, there's all sorts on here. There's a smart chat form, whatever would work best for you. But for me, this works great. Where's it gone? Here we are, the contact us form. I quite like the one with the background and the box, so I'm going to drag that into play and attach it to this section. Now, it can sometimes take a little while just initially to get this ready to go because we're actually setting up Wix forms, but that's nice and easy with Wix. All of these sorts of applications are really easy to sort of snap onto your site. Alignment and layout is just as easy as it was with the other sections. We can just drag to make sure things fit nicely in their spot. And I'm happy with that. That will now work and is ready to go. All I want to do is make sure that on the left-hand side, we have something to add some further context. So I'm going to add a heading. I'm going to add some text. I'm going to add an icon. I'm going to bring back that phone icon, and I'll actually copy and paste this block of text to just add some more. So what I'm going to do is edit the text. So this is going to be our main get in touch headline. This really helps with context and helps people understand that this is the section where they can inquire and get in touch with the contact form on the right-hand side. Next, I'm going to edit the paragraph text below. And then this here, I'm going to actually use for a mobile phone number. I'm going to just put something in like that. Lovely. Okay, so we're going to use exactly the same principles as above. We're going to use stacks to lay this out nicely, and then we shall wrap this up. So we're going to select all of these elements again. And actually, before we do that, it would be quite nice if we have the phone number and the icon in a stack of their own. So we're going to add a stack to select those two. It's a horizontal stack. We're going to want to make sure that this is aligned kind of in the center. So we can use these tools up here to align on the right-hand side. And then we can make that icon just a little bit smaller. I'm thinking something more like 32 pixels. And I just want to reduce that gap ever so slightly to just bring the text a little bit closer to the icon. Again, I'm going to color the icon, and now we're going to make the bigger stack. So let's select our title, our follow-up paragraph, and then that stack below, and we're going to add another stack. And we can now work on layout and alignment. So it'll be quite nice to kind of have this in the center to support our section on the right-hand side. And then spacing wise, I'm going to bring that phone number down just a little bit as an alternative option if someone doesn't want to use the contact form. Now, again, this would be something you think about a lot more if you had brand guidelines in place or if you're working with a brand with existing visual identities. But in terms of getting the content in place, using stacks and kind of coming up with creative and your own layouts, this is a great way to get familiar with the tools. And I'd really recommend hopping into Wix Studio and actually using some of the predefined sections to start learning how to use different stacks, different layouts, and different approaches to sort of more creative or perhaps more professional and polished appearances within the studio. Once you're happy with what you've built and you've got something designed that fits with your brief and you're almost ready to hand this over to the client, there are a few things that you really must make sure you do before getting yourself ready to click publish, or like I say, to transfer this over to someone else. First and foremost is responsiveness. So you'll see here at the top, and I've already got a fully dedicated video on responsive design in Wix Studio. So I'm not going to go in too much depth right now, but you'll see here that we have different breakpoints. Okay, so different devices or different widths of screens that you could access this content through. So it's really important that you go through all of these and just ensure that you're happy with how things look on those different devices. Okay, so you can go through and you can see that it's actually done a lot for us already, but those two custom sections will need reworking. So where at the moment we've got those columns, we can actually turn them into rows. We can resize our text. Let's say something more like 64, maybe that's a bit big, but you get the picture. We can go through on each device and just make sure that we're happy with how things look. And this might be a bit experimental, but you get the picture, right? We can go through device by device and just make sure that the layout is looking good. So I'm going to quickly just go through now and make some changes to make sure that my website is nice and responsive. Okay, so you'll see that these changes now make this look much better on a mobile breakpoint. And if we go back to desktop, it's not made any changes to the design on this layout. There's a whole range of tools such as the responsive behavior that are built into Wix Studio to make it really easy for you to understand how to build a responsive website that I have a fully dedicated video on, so make sure that you check that out on the channel. But this is nonetheless a really important step. Even though it's not part of this specific video, it's something you really need to take seriously with a website. The main and obvious reason being that so many of the users of the internet today are accessing websites through mobile phones, and if you're not optimizing the experience for those users, then you're effectively losing either yourself or your clients some potential. The last step before I would hand this over to a client, beyond gaining their feedback and making sure they're happy with this, is actually just to go through and make sure that from an SEO standpoint, things are good. So you're going to want to optimize the structure. You're going to want to optimize the assets in use. So making sure none of your pictures are too big to load quickly. And you're going to want to make sure that you've structured your copy correctly. So Google or any search engine that's crawled the website can understand that this line relates to this section, which can be really important, particularly as we get towards the sort of generation of AI, where understanding context is becoming more and more important to allow your website or your client's website to become the correct answer for certain searches on tools like ChatGPT. So client feedback, SEO, responsiveness, these are the sorts of things that at this point in the process you really need to be optimizing for before even thinking about either transferring or publishing your site. And that there would be the final part of the workflow. So we can press publish, which is genuinely as simple as clicking this button in the top right hand side. We'll go straight to a live URL. You can then upgrade the plan and connect to custom domain or buy one through Wix domains and you are ready to go. It's also worth mentioning that you can then transfer this over to your client and manage the project collaboratively with your client, which is awesome. Wix Studio even allows you to invoice your clients directly, which is so cool. In fact, the entire setup for managing your relationships with your client through Wix Studio is awesome. You can collect feedback in a really clean way. You can invoice them, but you can also present them with a dashboard of their own, where you can provide them with resources like brand guidelines, logos, but also Wix Studio specific tutorials that you think might be relevant for them. So there's my entire process. And again, I'm going to say it one more time because frankly, as a web designer, this is not my best work, to say the least, right? But I just wanted to show you the basic principles of how to custom build a website in Wix Studio, but also the flow from brief to a published site. And just to sort of show you how Wix Studio supports you from top to bottom, not just in terms of how to translate that brief into a publishable website, but also to manage a relationship with your client, which is so important. And hopefully you can see how simple it is. We take a brief, we come up with some initial ideas, we get something designed and approved, we then go and build and develop that in the tool of our choice. For me, Wix Studio's relationship management with the client is honestly an absolute game changer. So this feels like the right tool for this particular type of project. But find something you're comfortable with, develop the site there, make sure you're optimizing it for different devices and for search engines. And then when you're ready, get that either transferred over to your client or connected to a domain and ready to publish. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, please do drop them in the comments section below. The channel exists to help founders, business owners, creatives like you and me to basically grow their brand online with success. So if you're looking to learn tips and tricks beyond just website design on how to grow your brand online, then please do stick around. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate a thumbs up on the video because it just really helps me out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.